As a non-scientist, I'd never heard of Arthur Eddington until I watched this film. So when David Tennant magically appeared in the front row studio earlier, without the TARDIS, I wondered whether it was a name that he was familiar with.
No, I'd never heard of Arthur Stanley Eddington. I'd heard of Albert Einstein, as most of us have, I think. But I think that's why it's such a great drama, actually, that there's this incredible untold tale. You know, but for Eddington proselytising for Einstein, and indeed proving Einstein to be correct, the whole way we think about the universe could be many years behind where we're at now. It's incredibly important to everything that's come since this story, and I don't know why it's an untold story, really. It may have something to do with Eddington himself, who wasn't a great self-publicist, I don't think. He was rather a quiet, modest man.
Obviously, in the film, you have to sound very knowledgeable about science. I mean, do you understand this stuff?
Of course I do. All of it. Yes. No, I mean, I have more of an understanding of the theory of relativity now than I did before I made the film. But it's still not an easy thing to entirely come to grips with. And in fact, even after the events of this film, astrophysicists were slightly cloudy about exactly what the theory of relativity was. There's quite a famous story that a very learned physicist came up to Eddington at a party and said, "I believe you're one of only 3 men who understand the theory of relativity." And Eddington said nothing, and he said, "Oh, come on, man, don't be shy." And he went, No, sorry, I wasn't being shy, I was just trying to figure out who the third one was. So I think it remains quite an opaque theory, quite difficult to get your head around, but ultimately a sort of very beautiful theory. It's interesting, you hear physicists talking about the beauty of ideas, and that sort of pursuit of beauty is almost as important as the pursuit of the truth, because I think when the two come together, there's a great sense that the truth has been found.
Was Doctor Who in any way helpful in getting to grips with scientific lingo, do you think? Because I mean, I remember you having to do this whole speech about prime numbers once.
Yes, well, there's a lot of science in Doctor Who, often very factual science, and often slightly heightened science, and often bits that are just completely made up. But certainly that kind of integrity of purpose when you are talking about whatever it might be. Yeah, the Happy Prime speech in Doctor Who is a very good example. But that, Happy Primes exist. That's a piece of actual science that we slipped in there. Yeah, you do have to develop a working understanding of what you're talking about, or at least have in your own head a version of what that truth might be, because I think you've got to believe you know what you're talking about if you have the hope of convincing anybody else.
Now, soon after you filmed this, you started preparing for Hamlet and Love's Labour's Lost at the Royal Shakespeare Company. Since Hamlet is such a feat of memory, I'm interested in how you dealt with all these roles at once, and did you start learning the lines for Hamlet in advance? I
didn't know. I actually made a very conscious decision not to do too much on Hamlet in advance. We had 7 weeks rehearsal, which I decided should be long enough, really. I think there's a danger with something like Hamlet, which comes with so much baggage, so many preconceptions from everybody who comes to it, whether you're acting in it or just coming to see it as a member of the audience, that I think your job as an actor in those circumstances is to get rid of the baggage and treat it like it's just a play, like you would any other role. So I made a very conscious decision not to start learning it before the first day of rehearsals, so that any process of preparation and learning would happen along with rehearsals, and that would be informed by decisions being made in the rehearsal room and conversations being had there with the actors you're working with and with the director, rather than turning up on day one thinking, yes, my Hamlet's going to be a one-legged gentleman with a Danish accent or whatever it might be. I think it's trying to find what is fresh and real and, to use a slightly pretentious actorly word, what is a sort of organic, to avoid the preconception and the sort of the weight of history on your shoulder when you come to something like that.
But there's still the mechanical process of having to learn lines. I mean, do you kind of write bits on post-it notes and stick them around the house? Or
occasionally. That's usually towards the end of the process, I find, when there's certain bits that aren't going in. Especially with Shakespeare, you have to be very specific about the words you're saying, because people tend to know them. But it's the learning lines thing is just, it does seem like a bit of alchemy to people who don't do it, but there really is no secret to it. It's just the boring bit. It's just homework, and there's no secret. Anyone can do it. It's not a skill that you learn. It's just about staring at words on a page until they're in your memory. It's just the boring bit, I'm afraid.
Now, Pete Postlethwaite was on this programme last night, and he said that they had changed King Lear during the course of the current production. Have you changed Hamlet during the run?
Not in any fundamental way. We haven't re-rehearsed anything. I think inevitably with a long run of anything, and particularly with a play that is this rich and this ambiguous and this fecund. I think inevitably things change and progress and mature, but that's almost invisible to you. I think it just sort of, it kind of occurs to you in a different way every night, and that will be ongoing, and things will. Yeah, I'm sure it has changed, but not. We haven't made conscious. We didn't consciously redirect anything or change bits. No.
Do you feel haunted by the role of Hamlet? And I'm just thinking Daniel Day-Lewis had to drop out of playing the role halfway through because he began to see his own dead father, and there have been many kind of stories like that. Do you feel like that?
It's interesting. Every night that you do it, it feels different. It is just so rich. There's so much of it, I suppose. There's so much story to tell every night that it takes you to different places. And some nights it can be terribly upsetting. Other nights it can be rather high, a sort of toxic energy it gives you, and it can be very different from night to night. It is very different from night to night. So sometimes I feel haunted by it. Sometimes I feel enlivened by it. Sometimes I feel weighted down with it. Sometimes you feel like it's a drug and you can't wait to take another sniff. So it's been an extraordinary time. It's just big. There's just a lot of it, and it deals with some fairly fundamental emotions and situations, and it's an extraordinary thing to kind of keep hitting every night. I don't think I'd want to do it for too long. No, I think the run we've got is about right, because I think you do have to keep going to some quite dark places to summon up that stuff every night. Yeah.
Now, when you finish the London run of Hamlet, you're going to start filming the final series of Doctor Who.
Well, my final bit's not the final. I suspect
Your final, sorry.
Doctor Who will go on for many years to come. Yes.
How do you feel about that?
It's a mixture of emotions, really. It's sad because I love it and I will miss it. But at the same time, I think it's probably the right moment to move on. I think it's good to leave something when you're still enjoying it as much as I am. I don't want to outstay my welcome. So it mixed emotions. I'm sure I'll be very sad when the day finally comes, when I leave those studios in Cardiff for the last time.
Why did you decide to stop?
Just because if I didn't leave now, I never would, really. I have such a good time, and it would be very easy to stay forever. And I don't think that's good for the show or for me, probably. And I kind of thought I'd probably reached that tipping point where if I didn't go now, I never would. So it was difficult, because it's hard to leave something that you love and that's going well and that people seem to be enjoying. But I'd rather go when there was a chance I might still be missed than to still be there when they're going, when is he leaving? Please, let's have someone else.
How do you cope with the fans?
Well, they're all very nice people. It's not
because it's a pretty fanatical following, isn't it?
It's certainly there are some very enthusiastic fans, yeah. But usually it's a privilege to be in the middle of a show that is this.
Do they shout catchphrases
about.
at you in the street?
I don't really have catchphrases. I mean, there's a few things that the Doctor will repeat now and again, but it's not. No, it's not like.
But do people tell endless jokes about kind of sonic screwdrivers and TARDISes and things like that?
People do say, "Where's your TARDIS?" with alarming regularity, and imagine that they're the first person who's ever said it. But it's not the worst thing to have to cope with in life. It's not. It's a very, like I say, it's a very privileged position to be in, to be part of something that people love as much as they seem to love Doctor Who is a wonderful kind of heady place to be. I'm aware that this is a time of my life that will probably, there's unlikely to be anything else that I'll do that will attract this particular kind of attention and this type of sort of cross-generational, cross-cultural enthusiasm, which is, it's quite humbling, actually.